Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Uruguay, the teachers' union is holding a 48-hour strike in rejection of the education reform being promoted by the government of President Luis Lacalle Pou. The strike began at 10 o'clock in the morning local time at the premises of the skating club in Montevideo. The coordinator of the teaching unions called the action, which was joined by the Elementary Teachers Federation, secondary school teachers, and the Union of the Labor University. The act is in defense of public education and against the historic adjustment of $150 million. The mobilized people also reject the stigmatization of the teachers collective, which in the last few weeks have carried out several protest actions. In Bolivia, in response to civic committees destabilizing actions, several social organizations proceed with a siege of Santa Cruz as a pressure measure to lift the indefinite strike. The Single Union Federation of Indigenous Workers of Santa Cruz reported the siege to the capital of Santa Cruz is a measure to the strike launched on Saturday by the civic committees. The strike is causing direct impacts on social sectors and also affecting services such as transportation and health. Several unions point out, among other aspects, that the siege seeks to demand from the civic leaders led by Fernando Camacho to have allowed the business sector to distribute their production, excluding farmers who have refused to provide the people with their merchandise. The Union Federation assured that as of this Wednesday, only ambulances will be allowed to pass through the blockade. Earlier, several confrontations left at least 2 people injured in the town of Plan 3000 as part of the ongoing dispute between those who demand the lifting of the blockades and the supporters of the civic committees who insist on continuing the blockade as a pressure measure against the government of Luis Arce. Santa Cruz police arrived on the scene to de-escalate the situation and used tear gas to disperse demonstrators. In Bolivia, rural women's organizations denounce having received death threats from opposition groups that maintain destabilizing actions in the Santa Cruz department. The secretary of the Federation of Indigenous Farmers Women of Santa Cruz, Bartolina Sisa Felipa Yalili Montenegro, denounced that she and her family, as well as several other leaders of this organization, were threatened and warned that their lives are in danger. The leader pointed out that recently a family member was murdered and that she warned that the aggressors want to do the same to her. Felipa Yalili called on the national government as well as the international community to reflect on this situation and pointed out that the governor of Santa Cruz, Fernando Camacho, and the civic committees are persecuting and harassing the social organizations. Let's take a short break, but first remember you can follow us on TikTok at the account at teleSUR English, in which you'll be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. In Argentina, foreign ministers of the countries of the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States meet to address the current challenges facing the region. Among the topics to be discussed during the 23rd meeting of CELAC foreign ministers are the post-pandemic economic recovery, the anti-corruption agenda, and dialogue with extra-regional partners, among other matters of regional interest. The aim is also to renew the strategic association based on historical, cultural, and human ties in order to strengthen the different cooperation ties between member countries so that relations can reach their full potential. In Argentina, in the framework of the 39th meeting of the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, Foreign Minister Santiago Cafiero said the countries of the region have the tools to overcome the current crisis. Cafiero pointed out on the closing day of the meeting held at the Kirchner Cultural Center in the city of Buenos Aires that the member countries have the capacity to recover from the aftermath of the pandemic and the global energy crisis. He also highlighted the efforts of the Organization for the Transformation of the Development Model of the region. Meanwhile, valued the roadmap proposed by the organization, which in his opinion is not limited to describing the situation, but also presents proposals and initiatives to overcome the crisis. Germany's health minister on Wednesday unveiled plans to decriminalize the possession of up to 30 grams of cannabis and allow the sale of the substance to adults for recreational purposes. A question mark remains over whether the plan approved by the cabinet will go ahead, because the government first wants to be sure that it is compatible with European Union laws. Health Minister Karl Lauterbach said it will only go ahead with legislation if that is the case. The plan called for the sale of cannabis to adults at licensed outlets, and the aim is to combat the black market. Lauterbach added that the government intends to regulate the market tightly. Legalizing controlled sales of cannabis is one of a series of reforms outlined in last year's coalition deal between the three socially liberal parties that make up Chancellor Olaf Scholz's government. Since the implementation of sanctions against the Russian economy by Western countries, Moscow has exported energy resources to China to the tune of $51 billion. According to Chinese customs records, purchases of Russian liquefied natural gas and coal have surpassed previous volume by over one-third since the start of the conflict in Ukraine. Same has happened with imports of crude oil and other petroleum products. Increased trade between the two powers has been fueled by tensions with the West, and it has pushed China's energy import bill for the past 7 months to $51 billion, whereas during the same period last year, such imports amounted only to $4.7 billion. The Russian delegation to the United Nations has denounced the United States and Ukraine for non-compliance with their responsibility under the Biological Weapons Convention. Moscow's permanent representative to the United Nations, Vasily Nebensia, sent UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres presenting a draft resolution to create a committee to investigate the activities of U.S. biolaboratories in Ukraine. The draft resolution seeks to determine whether the U.S. and Ukraine may have violated the Biological Weapons Convention. In April 2022, the Kremlin denounced that U.S. biolaboratories in Ukraine were working on extremely dangerous pathogens, microbes, viruses, to create new types of biological weapons targeting certain ethnic groups. More news coming up after a final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. In Iran, the Daesh terrorist group claims responsibility for the terrorist attack against the sacred mausoleum Shah Cheraq in the city of Shiraz in the southwest of the country. The attack took place on Wednesday, causing the death of 15 people and wounding at least 40 others. In turn, local media reported that the attack was provoked by a man armed with an assault rifle who used it against the worshippers who were in the sanctuary. The Iranian President Sayyid Ibrahim Raisi condemned the terrorist attack and promised that he would give an exemplary response to the perpetrators of the attack. On Wednesday, the National People's Assembly of China started a new session with an agenda that includes the review of amendments to the law on the protection of women's rights. During the conclave, the parliamentarians proposed to punish sexual harassment, gender-based labor discrimination, and damages to the privacy, reputation, and social security of women in the country. During the dialogue, the officials emphasized that previous changes introduced last April are enforced to prevent and punish crimes such as kidnapping, trafficking, and forced labor of women and girls. In 2022, China launched a major crackdown on the abuse of women and surveillance in rural villages following an increase in the number of gender violence cases. A seminar themed China and the World in the New Expedition was held in Lima, Peru under the sponsorship of the Latin America Center of the China Media Group and the Chinese Embassy in Peru. The seminar dipped into the universal significance of the 20th National Congress of the Communist Party of China on the future development of China and the world. Among the attendees were Chinese Ambassador to Peru, Song Yan, former Peruvian Ambassador to China, Juan Carlos Cabunay Chavez, Peruvian experts and media representatives. They praised the CPC's foresighted leadership and achievements in building a community with a shared future for mankind with intensified media cooperation and exchanges. Japanese wood traders and consumers are facing rising costs of imported timber products as a result of months of depreciation of the Japanese yen. Since the beginning of this year, the United States Federal Reserve has continued to raise interest rates aggressively, pushing the dollar higher against other currencies. In wood markets in Tokyo, prices of many wood products from North America and Europe have doubled or even tripled recently. High wood prices have firstly imposed an impact on Japan's construction industry, as most Japanese houses are built with imported wood. Many consumers have felt pressure of surging costs of raw materials, as they have to pay 20 to 30% more to buy the same piece of furniture. The Chinese city of Shanghai began administering an inhalable COVID-19 vaccine on Wednesday in what appears to be a world first. The vaccine, a mist that is sucked in through the mouth, is being offered for free as a booster dose for previously vaccinated individuals. Needle-free vaccines may persuade people who do not like getting a shot to get vaccinated, as well as help expand vaccination in poor countries because they are easier to administer. Experts say that vaccine taken in the mouth also fend off the virus before it reaches the rest of the respiratory system, though that would depend in part on the size of droplets. The booster vaccine was developed by Chinese biopharmaceutical company CanSino Biologics as an aerosol version of the same company's one-shot adenovirus vaccine. Levels of the most common and dangerous greenhouse gases, including carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, and methane, increased to record levels according to the World Meteorological Organization. Of the three main types of greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide, the biggest jump between 2020 and 2021 was in methane. Its concentration in the air comes with the biggest year-on-year increase since regular measurements began 4 decades ago, according to the WMO. Methane is more potent at trapping heat than carbon dioxide, but doesn't stay in the atmosphere as long as carbon dioxide, and there's 200 times more carbon dioxide in the air than methane. 3/5 of the methane we produce come from livestock, rice farming, the use of fossil fuels, and biomass burning and landfills. The rest come from natural sources like wetlands and termites. We have come to the end of this news briefing. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.